What's going on, guys, and welcome to my live stream. Every Thursday I'll be conducting a live stream at 7 p.m. Eastern time. But yeah, just like the title says, at Chipotle it's a burrito day, so they are giving away $100,000 in either free burritos or free Bitcoin. But let's kind of go over what you have to do to qualify. So there's a bit of a backstory here. So Chipotle is launching the game with Stephen Thompson, the founder and CEO of Coil. So if you guys aren't familiar with earlier this year, there was a gentleman who lost the password to his hard drive that was containing more than 200 million Bitcoin at the time of the news story. And he only had 2 guesses left before the hard drive would lock out. And it was basically this gentleman right here, and he's came to peace with, with what has happened because he has no control over it. But basically the event will include a new interactive game called Burritos or Bitcoin. It's an ode to Thomas' experience losing the login to his hard drive that is now worth 387 million. So it's hard for me to believe that he's came to terms with it, knowing that it's worth even more, almost double. And in response, Chipotle is encouraging fans to carry out a mock cryptocurrency rescue mission and to crack the code on its digital wallet. So each player, you basically get 10 tries to crack this code of a 6-digit code. And if you win, you have a chance to either win free burritos or up to $25,000 in Bitcoin. And even if you don't win, there is also a surprise that they said you may be surprised and delighted with a special offer from Chipotle, even if you don't win. And I'm kind of curious what that is. So if any of you guys have a chance that went to Chipotle today, let me know. If you're on the East Coast, it's too late, but if you're in the central area or on the West Coast, you still have time to head out to Chipotle and try to get some free burritos or free Bitcoin. But the next story that I kind of want to talk about is Goldman Sachs is close to offering Bitcoin and other digital assets to its wealth management clients. And this is massive news. We've been kind of hearing this was starting to happen. A lot of these wealthy clients were starting to get eager that, hey, I need to have some exposure to Bitcoin. Hey, some of my other friends and whatnot, they have Bitcoin. Why can't I get access to it? So it's one of those things. At first, a lot of these banks and Goldman Sachs, whatnot, had a very negative view on Bitcoin. They didn't think it was real. And it's one of the things when the public starts to change its view, companies are here to serve us. So they're willing to change on how they think at things. So the bank is aimed at offering investments in the emerging asset class in the second quarter. So here after this next month, they're going to start offering it to its clients. So when one of the biggest banks is offering Bitcoin to its clients, what do you think is going to happen with all these other banks? Even though they might not agree with it, one of the biggest components to a lot of adoption is game theory. So whether you agree with the innovation that's happening or not, you can't ignore it. And it's one of those things, if a company's starting to implement this and you're not, you can get left behind. And that's not something that anyone wants to do. And great example, if you are looking at the bottom ticker, at this moment, there's only 21 public companies that currently hold Bitcoin. And that's not much. Now, there's other companies that do, they're not public, but this number is going to grow astronomically here by the end of the year. A lot of times, people make short-term predictions. At the end of the year, I don't see how this number is not easily over 100 companies. And, it's not unrealistic to even say something as absurd as a couple hundred, because what's happening is you're seeing a mass adoption of these institutions get into this market space. And what originally started happening, you had these companies invest maybe 1%, 0.5%, 2%. Well, what's happening now is that 1, 2, 3% has now doubled, tripled. And these companies now have 10%, 15% of their worth in Bitcoin now. So it's now forcing companies that want to get into Bitcoin. No, they no longer want to put 1% in because everyone else has 10%. So now the new baseline you're hearing is 5%. So most companies that are getting into the space are now putting a minimum of roughly 5%. And just think about how this all can turn out. So if companies at this moment are investing just 5% of their cash flow that they have available, what happens when it doubles or triples? So they now have 10, 15% now in Bitcoin. And of all these companies have over 10%, and you're now wanting to get into it, and you're a big player and whatnot, you're now pressured to now equal what's happening in the market. And this is a great example. So great example when Tesla made that huge move when it was roughly in the mid 30,000s. They only put $1.5 billion into Bitcoin, and it's already almost doubled. And that's the beautiful thing of what's happening, is that because of all the inflation that's happening around and these stimulus packages. And speaking of stimulus, there's another big one coming out that they're talking about. 1.9 trillion was recently released. There's now talk about a $4 trillion stimulus package. More than likely won't get passed. It might get reduced to something around 2.5. But as I've gotten older, I'm starting to really see things on how they do. They shoot high. Like they try to get 4 trillion, some insane number. It's insane that they even tried to do that. So what you do is you almost cut that number in half and it doesn't look too bad. And 2.5 trillion is terrible, but looks a lot better than 4. And they're doing that to really mess with our heads. And with everything happening, these companies with their huge cash reserves on hand know that if this fiat currency is depreciating 10 plus percent a year, if they're not getting that on their investments, they're losing a lot. So MicroStrategy, they put all their cash reserves into Bitcoin, and boy, they're doing really well right now. And like I said, more companies are going to now start being pressured at getting that exposure to Bitcoin. So let's go ahead and talk about the next subject. But first, if you like the content that I'm covering, please subscribe to my channel. I do a live stream every Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesdays, I'm doing NFT Tuesday, where I cover all things NFTs. It is an amazing emerging market space, and I love covering it. I'm learning about it, and you guys can teach me some things too. And every Thursday, mostly talk about cryptocurrencies and investments. But let's go ahead and talk into the next subject here, where once again, these top asset classes, and this is such an important page because we need to understand what is the end game and the potential of where Bitcoin is going. And it's like beating a dead horse, but let's just say it again, and everyone's finally coming to terms of what's happening, is that Bitcoin is not going to replace the US dollar. It's just realistically not possible. It's the way our economy works. That's just not how things work. But when it comes to a store of value, this new asset Bitcoin is digital gold, and a lot of people can argue that Bitcoin is better at being gold than gold itself. And that's insane. And when we start to see this number start to dip into here, which is currently happening, just give it some time. Don't be surprised if this year, like I said, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I can easily see this market cap being worth over $2 trillion. And as you guys can see on the ticker, I've made a conservative estimate with all this mass adoption, that Bitcoin can easily hit $100,000. I don't have the article on hand, but I was reading, a lot of you guys might know the CEO of ARK, Cathie Woods. She made a statement, and like I said, I wish I was reading it right now, where she was saying if just the companies in the Fortune 500 company just invested 1% of their cash reserves, Bitcoin would easily hit $150,000. And we're just talking about 1%. And that's not much. Remember what I was saying? If these companies start putting 3 to 5%, oh my God, I can't wait to see what's happening. And we just have to be patient. I've noticed a lot on YouTube is a lot of us are trying to, make a quick buck, but we have to be patient because there's a lot happening, and a lot of these companies are trying to get into the space, but there's a lot of things they got to get through and whatnot, and it takes time. So let's go ahead and talk about the next thing. Of course, a lot of you guys, it's basically old news, but it's got to be covered because it's a lot going on with this whole Visa. So Visa is now settling transactions with crypto, and at the moment they are using the stable coin, the USDC. One of the things you guys haven't noticed, I believe that this stable coin is going to be one of the most important ones, and this could be the one that could be pegged to that the government and everyone might use because it's through Coinbase. It's an American company. There's, I'm gonna cover a video on it, but let's get into this where basically Visa is now using the Ethereum network to now settle transactions, and they're not using Cardano. They're not using the other ones that are trying to replace Ethereum. They're using the one that you keep hearing about, the transaction fees going through the roof and whatnot. And this just shows that Ethereum is not going to be replaced. You have the number one payment network system that is now getting involved with them. Ethereum is going to get bigger. And I can't even believe that Ethereum is only about roughly 1,900, almost close to 2,000 at this point, with what was happening in the Bitcoin, this bull market with Bitcoin going up to 60,000. A lot of us were expecting Ethereum to be in the maybe 2,500, but a lot of FUD, a lot of bad news, especially, like I said, with the whole NFT space and the fees. It's getting a lot of bad rep as this being not very energy efficient and not good for the planet. But like I said, if you're following the space, Ethereum does have a plan. They have been pushed back and delayed, which also caused the price to drop. But if you've been following it, it's going to happen, and they're going to have these fees get dropped down here sooner than later. Now, I don't want to say what's going to cause that because there's a bunch of layer 2 technologies being implemented, but I do believe sooner than later, I say within the next couple months or so, once these transaction fees go down, we're going to see a huge spike in the crypto market. Massive spike. So, like I said, guys, the lot is happening right now. And one of the other things like I was wanting to talk about, like I said, when Ethereum was at roughly 2,000, Bitcoin was barely in the 40s and 50,000s, and like I said, it should easily have been closer to the $2,400-$2,500 mark in my opinion. So at this moment, this asset is highly undervalued, and when people start to realize that these transactions and whatnot are gonna start to go down, like I said, you got to be proactive than reactive, because by the time it happens, it's too late once it pumped up already. So I say go ahead. Like I said, I'm not a financial advisor, but this would be an opportunity to get back into Ethereum if you're like some people that might have sold it and invested into Cardano or Polkadot. Like I said, guys, Ethereum is the big dog in this, and it's not going away. Well, guys, I just want to say I hope you guys enjoyed this stream. If you guys leave some questions and comments, I'd like to hear from you guys, and I'd like to see you guys on Tuesday when I cover